In today's episode, I've brought on two recruiting geniuses, Tony Williams and Kayla Pollak. These are two individuals who have worked with small PT practices all the way to $50 million PT practices. And they're going to tell you about the single easiest tool that you can start using today that will start getting you hires. Here's a spoiler alert. It's called LinkedIn. And there's so many different ways that these experts are leveraging this tool to make hires now that they are helping their clients get ahead of the game by making these hires. Now, both of these people have been with me in two other companies, and they're with me now in Virtual Rockstar. All they do is recruit. They love it. They are talented at it, and they're going to share all their secrets with you in today's episode. Enjoy the show. What do you think is the percentage of people who are struggling in hiring PTs? If you had to take all the physical therapy practice owners out there.
Oh my gosh.
100%.
100%, right?
Everybody's struggling.
Okay. So why do you guys think that? Why would you say that?
There's a surplus of needs and not enough PTs. And so the PTs, the candidates have the upper hand because there's more openings than there are of them. So they're very picky and very selective with who they're jumping on board with.
I agree. I think there's a total surplus of candidates and not enough PTs to hire for PT owners. And you've done a lot of recruiting, Kayla. Obviously, you didn't do as much in Rise Rehab with us, but you were at Empower as their head recruiter. So how did that show up for you? How did you even begin the process of finding a physical therapist?
Yeah. And I think that the process changed a lot, even post-pandemic. So I came in 2021, took over for Tony. And even initially when I came in, candidates were applying to ads. They were applying, we were interviewing, they were hiring. And as time went on, there was this shift where now I was hunting them because they weren't coming to us. And it wasn't anything that we changed on the back end. I think that the market changed and they knew they had the upper hand. And so they were coming in asking for more and we had to be very competitive.
So that was after the pandemic. You felt like there was a shift, which is interesting because Tony and I had your job before I left and you went somewhere else in the business. But you and I, when we did it, I remember thinking it was easier to hire for those 26 locations than it was for our 4 back at Rise Rehab days.
Hands down. Because we would go to all of our events and people would be coming at us. And we were the ones being super selective. We were like, ooh, let's do some practice interviews with this one. Okay, we want you to work for us. We had the upper hand at that point. It totally shifted.
You can't be 100%
shifted.
I mean, you should be selective, but it's much more difficult now.
Yeah. I think, back in the day when we were doing it before the pandemic, I think what we had going for us was number one, we had the systems that had been built out. We'd been touring those universities locally for years, talking to first-year students since 4 years beforehand. But I also think there's something about gravity with larger companies. I think when we became Empowered and we had those 26 locations, most of them in Arizona, it was just a brand that got social proof. People would be like, oh, you guys are all over the place. They were more interested than maybe the 1 or 2 off that they had never heard of before. And that shifted after the pandemic to where it leveled the playing field just because there was a lot more. Why do you think it leveled the playing field? Why did pandemic have so much to do with changing the recruiting space, do you think?
I've seen just in recent years, home health has become kind of where PTs are wanting to go.
Yeah.
So maybe in that sense, it kind of opened, and I don't know if the pandemic is what did that, if that kind of opened up this or more home health becoming more common, just a new option to PTs where maybe they didn't know that was an option before.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, you did inpatient, you did outpatient. And now, they're coming in as a new grad into home health and they're getting paid $100,000.
I 100% agree with that. But I feel like people being forced, because there was a lot of people that had to lay off, right? During COVID, there's a lot of people that lost their jobs.
That's true.
And they were forced to be home, right? I feel like I noticed a major shift in people wanting that work-life balance and wanting to be home more too as well. And so now PT's coming out, I noticed, after pandemic or post-pandemic, they were not wanting to work 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
They're wanting to work 32 or 30 or even 20 after getting used to being home and just having this, I don't know, almost like an epiphany. I know a lot of people that I know just being like, I'm realizing that work's not the most important thing in the world, right? I need to focus on my family.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother mindset that I noticed. And
American culture is so like that. When I was overseas, everyone takes a month off in August. And so I think you're right. I think both of those things contributed to this situation that we're in now because a lot of people are sick and tired of just grinding. Yeah. And the market is a grind. The physical therapy market, if it doesn't pivot, is producing this result where people are leaving the industry more than entering the industry every single year now. And that's really sad. But it has to do with the fact that we just don't know how to address the larger issues. So obviously, that's one of the reasons we have the podcast. We're trying to get people together to start fighting the larger picture here. But in the short term, people still have to recruit PTs. You guys now, obviously, we've been together in 3 different companies, and now you guys recruit all the time. We're hiring virtual assistants, but the PT thing is still something you guys know a lot of. And Kayla, you're still doing some PT recruiting on the side.
Yeah.
Like, what would you recommend to a PT owner in terms of like options for them? What options are there for a PT owner who's kind of stuck on the recruiting side of PTs?
Yeah, I think that there are resources out there that are available. And I think the biggest thing is just knowing exactly what you're looking for and then where to go. And I think and I've just found this, I think that the best place to find quality PT candidates is through LinkedIn. I think a lot of these other job boards like Indeed and ZipRecruiter and Monster, and it's kind of just a dead end to me. I feel like that's not where you're going to find the quality candidates. I think they're in LinkedIn. And so it's about making that connection, building that relationship with the candidates, going after the right candidates too.
Yeah. So it's funny about you saying that. In that program I teach, Rockstar Recruiter, there's a program called the LinkedIn Igniter program that is being replaced by artificial intelligence. So there's a website, Rockstars who are listening, called salesmind.ai. I demonstrated it at the Arizona event that I was speaking at. But ultimately, you can plug in an artificial intelligence bot that reaches out and asks a series of questions. It starts off with like, hey, can we connect? We're both Arizona-based physical therapists, for example. Great. The next one, it just starts building relationship, and then it starts building them towards asking if they want to interview for a position. But I think you're right that LinkedIn is the future. I've had clients who have had tremendous success, but you have to know how to use LinkedIn too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your experience on that?
Well, that's a whole nother thing that I was going to say. It's great. Like, you're right. LinkedIn is the place to go for professionals and physical therapists, but you have to also have a presence on there, because if you go and try to reach out to a PT and you're like, hey, you want them to come work for you, right? Or trying to form some sort of connection and build a relationship, and they go to your page and you've got like nothing on there, and they can't, they have no idea what your company is about or what you're representing. And I mean, I would be totally turned off by that. So that's a whole nother thing that you have to make sure you're on top of, is just having some sort of a presence on LinkedIn and making sure that you have that clear of what your company is and what you're standing for.
Yeah, I've actually took a course on it, Tony. I feel like you maybe could have taught the course, because it talks about like the idea that the first step in LinkedIn is to develop your personal profile to stand out. I had a little PTSD as soon as I said that. My LinkedIn profile is locked right now. I can't get in it.
Oh, no.
I honestly feel like I'm dead in the water, because I've been using that to curate different types of relationships all the way down to marketing. And so anyway, so I was feeling the stress, but it's true. Like, once we learn how to, and it's so easy to use, it really is. But like creating that profile, it's almost like showing someone the inside of your home. What do you want them to see? Mm-hmm. What messages do you want to ring out in terms of, what you stand for as a company, and what pictures do you show? Do you guys have any recommendations on what people should do for their profiles?
For me, like, what I get really excited about is just going somewhere that it's just go straight to the front page, right? And it's just a clear understanding of what someone represents, something that's colorful, but also simple. If there's too much wording on there, I'm going to run away.
Yeah.
I'm not going to want to sit there and like read this huge story, right? Fonts, like great looking fonts, just attractive looking fonts, great color pictures, things like that.
Yeah. I love that too, because the easiest thing people can do, Rockstars, if you're listening, is to go look at other companies' profiles that recruit really well. The best company that knows how to recruit, in my opinion, ATI. They are not the company that most PTs think of when they think of like best represents the industry, but yet they recruit amazingly well. Mm-hmm. And the reason being, I had a chance at a couple of these events. Tony, you and I were at one years ago in DC, and we were across from the ATI people. And so I've used them as a template for everything I've taught in recruiting, because they're amazing at it. They don't have the personal connection of a small PT practice. They know how to message what they do have way better. And it's like, for recruiting, building trust is everything.
Oh, yeah.
So their pictures, if you look at their profile pictures, it's like the team together with their matching red shirts. Mm-hmm. It's not like a stock photo. I would say that organic and natural, but like I love you said, clean and clear and simple, but also authentic is an incredibly huge opportunity for people to clean up their profiles for sure.
No, great idea. Go find some companies online that you really like, as far as like, that they're doing really well. Yeah. But just seeing what their vision is and then going off of that, just because I feel like something that's attractive to anyone's eyes is.
And I think it's not enough just to create your profile. You have to be active too.
Yeah. What does that mean to be active?
I need to be more active.
Yeah. I almost feel like it's almost like a religious thing where it's like this shame and guilt of not being on LinkedIn enough. But what does that mean to you, Kayla?
It's consistency. I think that, it's one thing to kind of build your network, but then you need to be consistent in your posting so that it's showing up on your followers or your connections feed. So you can kind of build this beautiful profile, but it's kind of all for nothing if you're not in there actively posting and responding and liking other people's posts that kind of resonate with you. And so that's how I kind of landed with this little side gig that I'm doing, is that their team consistently posted. And so it got me like,
interesting.
What's going on? Like, who is, I've never heard of them before. I don't know like what they're about, but I kept seeing posts that I was like, that kind of started to resonate with me. So then I got interested and got into their profiles and landed a job. And so, yeah.
I love that share, Kayla. By the way, I do want you to promote that company. But it's, I think what's interesting in the disconnect I see is that PT owners are typically a little bit like me, a little bit older. And so I don't ever think that I could develop a meaningful, lasting relationship on LinkedIn. Like to me, it never even occurs to me as an option, but they did a study that showed that this new generation, what's the new one now? Z? I don't even know. Yeah. These, whippersnappers, these new grads and all these younger generations, even the millennials, which is, I think, one of you, but they believe very strongly that you can develop meaningful, lasting relationships online. And so activity and showing up in that is the same as like showing up at a marketing or networking event in person to them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people nowadays, everything is so digital, and you are just building and growing relationships online. I know most of all of us have friends that we keep in touch with. How do we keep in touch with them? Mm-hmm. It's all texting, emails, phone calls, whatever that is, right? So everything is digital, I feel like now, and 100% still feels authentic at the same time. It is authentic. So I wholeheartedly believe you can build lasting relationships, 100%.
There you go. Yes. Spoken by one of the two younger members of this group. So yeah, I think that's true. And I think if PT owners realize that, here's the other thing is, I don't think they think it's their job to. They don't really know where to go to find PTs anyway. So like going to LinkedIn just feels like one of a sea of options of where they could spend. Yeah. But you are telling us, and I am validating, that LinkedIn is a hot spot for people to go, because you told me something that shocked me. You said that your company is getting results in hiring people. Mm-hmm. When you told me about the side gig, I'm like, oh, that'll be a fun little side hustle and all that. But you're like, no, we're actually making some hires.
Yeah.
Do they have a team of people like on LinkedIn constantly like reacting? And do you know what they do?
In terms of like what they're posting, or?
Yeah, what are they doing? Are they sending posts? Are they reacting to other people's comments? All the above? Like, what do they do?
Yeah, a little bit of everything. So I think within just the company itself, like they're kind of feeding off each other and, celebrating wins that they have. And so all those things like you're seeing because you're following their profile. And so, yeah, when you start to see like they're celebrating each other, like that's kind of cool. I want to know more about that. Yeah. And just kind of tips and tricks, like they'll kind of share information with PT owners. Like, here's like things that maybe you haven't tried before. And here's kind of another option, going this direction to try to find candidates. And so, yeah, there's one individual in particular that kind of got me to this company. And she, every week is posting something new, and it's helpful information for PT owners. It's educational, it's inspiring. And so, she knows what she's doing.
I love that.
See, and for me, like thinking about being the owners, you guys are the ones that should be on it the most.
Yeah.
Posting and, whether it be celebrating somebody on your team member or something about, some educational something or another that you put out there. And then sprinkling in like little openings here and there that you may have, or our team is growing. You teach this, Will, right? Like you get in there and you don't just, put your ads out. That just shows that you need, and you're wanting somebody to come, right? It's like giving something back. You teach all of us to give back, right? And when someone sees that like they're getting something back, they're going to want to go it's a give and take.
It's a give and take thing. I love that because from what you're saying, Tony, this idea of like them serving others.
Correct.
It gives them that position. Why were our job fairs so successful? Because we weren't there to hire. I think that's the number one problem PT owners get in their way with is that they're desperate to hire. So they think that's why they're there is to hire. That's not why. It's like starting a business because you love money. It's what you do it for, but it's not why. So when recruiting, it's to fulfill our greatest purpose, which is that every leader is meant to build or create new leaders. So how can we serve and build leaders using a technology like LinkedIn? Is if that mindset is there, then they show up and recognize that, like, what if this isn't an online website? What if this was like someone's living room? Or what if it was a university setting? How would I talk to these kids? And then if they responded online in that way, they would know what to say and then have opportunities to promote.
Yeah, be true to who you are, like what you're representing for your practice. Like the owners need to be out there, be on your LinkedIn and just really market yourselves and your company, right? Because that alone, being yourself, is going to attract the people that are going to fit best with you, and it's going to bring in the right candidates. Because whoever is seeing all of this on their feed, oh, I like this. They're going to like it. They're going to go to your profile. Then that opens that door for you. You make connections. And
because you may have somebody that's managing that side of things for you, but if they're not living your culture, if they're not in it every day, they may be misrepresenting you. And so it's better for you to get on there, as, time consuming as it may be, or if it may feel like it's kind of an extra job that maybe you don't want to take on. And it doesn't have to be something where you're in there every day, but like I said, a weekly post, something that's educational or, if you are just acknowledging somebody on your team, just something small like that is going to go a long way.
I love that.
I mean, anybody can set aside 15, 20 minutes once a week, right?
Yeah.
At some point in your day, and just go like a handful of posts that, people that you're already following that represent and stand for what you believe in, right? Get out there, post, like you said, post one thing a week. It's just going to grow your followers. It's going to have more eyes out on your company.
Yeah, I love that. I think consistency is the big word here. And this is when I go to any social media training. I was at this big event with Tony a couple of weeks ago called Mindshare Collaborative. It's all about these medical professionals who are growing massive social media followings. And the biggest thing they said was just be consistent.
Yeah.
Once a week, but do it every week. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, just keeping consistent with that. So I teach in the LinkedIn Igniter program. By the way, that program was R&D'd. People think that stands for research and develop, but it was ripped off and duplicated. I created that for PTs based on a paid program I followed by a guy named Joey Laffenblom. I'm totally screwing up his name.
I was like, did you say that?
And by the way, it's with permission. It's not like I'm just like out there ripping him off. I just being funny, but he taught me how to leverage LinkedIn. And then I adapted a version of that for physical therapists. And so in it, and this is where people say they have some massive success, is they'll 15 minutes a day. I think they can do 50. If you can do 15 minutes a day and realize that is your biggest job. It's not patient care. It's not anything, because what's the number one job of a leader? To build more leaders. So you have to find the leaders to build them. So if you looked at it as like a validated, proven thing that's going to help you do it, because no PTs are doing it. If you're out there doing it and you're the only one doing it, you're going to have tremendous success. That's why I was so shocked, Kayla, when you were saying that you guys were having success. And I'll do this for free for anyone who's listening. Rockstars, if you want free access to the LinkedIn Igniter program for a month, and that's more than enough that you need, send me an email at will@unlockhba.com and I'll give you free access to a month. Because I just think if people just knew what to do and trusted it and did it, they get results. And I've seen that from rural Alaska to big companies in New York, how they can leverage LinkedIn to really amplify their recruiting like that. But it takes them understanding it and understanding their voice. Do you guys get on LinkedIn socially, or is it just
every day?
Do you really?
Every day. Yeah.
You're so great at it.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I just build out kind of a content calendar for myself, and I spend
for posts.
Yeah. And I scheduled out for 6 weeks. I typically do 2 right now for Virtual Rockstar, do 2 to 3 posts each week and just build that out for 6 weeks, set it on schedule on LinkedIn, and it does the work.
I totally forgot that you were managing our company's LinkedIn. I'm like, this is what happens when you have great people. They just start doing great things and you're like, oh yeah, I heard kind of a whispering of that. So you've been doing that ever since.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that now?
I probably started it, let's see, maybe back in June or July.
Hey, great job.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, started from scratch we are growing. Great. Yeah, we have, and again, like our target is Filipino VAs.
So you're using, that's right. You're using this page to help us attract the amazing people that you hire for PT and other medical owners to help them build their practices. So what does that look like in terms of following? I'm just curious.
Yes, we have over 1,000 followers already.
What?
Yeah.
Look at us.
Yep. Primarily in the Philippines. So yeah. Yeah.
My gosh. Well, and it's going to be weird because we're going to be in the Philippines in a couple of weeks.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
So I'm guessing some of the people that you may have met through LinkedIn using this process, we're going to physically be with here in a few weeks to do our big summit. What's the name of our summit we're doing?
Oh my gosh. What's the name of our summit?
Rockstar.
We just came up with
Revolution.
It's the Rockstar Revolution Summit. That's right.
Yes. Rockstar Revolution Summit.
Yeah. So if any of you guys who are listening have virtual assistants with us, you're welcome to come. We're going there in the middle of November. If not, don't worry, next year. But yeah, I think it's really cool to see the flourishing of that because what starts digital through LinkedIn manifests into real physical physical relationships, manifests into interpersonal relationships that are real and are meaningful. So it's a really cool thing that we've learned so much about LinkedIn. What else about LinkedIn would you say? Is there anything else that you guys would contribute to this topic?
Well, I want you to kind of go back and speak it a little bit more in on how you automate things because I think that'd be really important for our PT owners to know about. They're drowning.
So easy.
See, this is what I was going to say. Like, you may think of, oh my gosh, I have to be on it like once a day, or I have to be on it once a week and spend the time, find the time. I don't have that time. Well, you could set aside how much time would you say would need a week to just schedule things?
Not even, honestly. And I don't try to overcomplicate things. My posts are every week I post a link to go to our career page so that they can view all the openings that we have. So that automatically is every Monday that goes out. And then I typically will have a post on our core values. So I'll highlight one of our core values. We do VA testimonies that come through, like that gets posted. So it kind of varies week to week what's posted, but there's 2 to 3 postings every week that are going out.
So what time?
The whole time I'm just like learning about this for the first time. Like, this is so amazing.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about automation though. The idea being that we had a discussion in June about it. I forgot about it. I just saw the results that you were killing it. And now I'm learning about the details. That's what you're saying is automatively possible, is either someone or something doing that for you.
Right, exactly. So if you don't have the time, don't let it stress you out. But I wanted you to give them a better idea of how much time you're actually having to spend to automate these things.
Yeah. And maybe automate's not the right word, but because I still do have to manually go in there and schedule all the postings. But it's so easy. It is so easy.
For the podcast that you're on and all these other things that I do, I have a software called Metrical. I already pay for it. And you can calendar things out for a full month at a time.
Yeah.
And so I should give you access to that and have it post on that page. Yeah. So that's a no-brainer because you're doing it every week manually. You're creating it once a week, but then every day you go in there and take the extra 60 seconds to post it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I do, I typically will schedule out 6 weeks at a time. So what I do is I first figure out kind of, what I want to post. So I create content calendar, and then I still, I use Canva. I get into Canva, create the digital piece, whatever I want to post. And that's probably where it takes the most time, is just actually creating the content. So it's coming up with what I want to do, doing it, and then scheduling those posts. But I just get into LinkedIn, I schedule out 6 weeks, and you kind of just set it and forget it.
Oh, so she's not posting, spending 60 seconds posting it each day. She's scheduling it.
You're scheduling
and
it
she schedules 6 weeks out.
On LinkedIn.
So how much time would you say you spend? Let's say I'm assuming you have a dedicated time to prep for your 6 weeks. How much time are you spending?
It takes an hour to put my calendar together, and then creating the content, maybe 2 to 4 hours at the most. Again, I'm keeping it very simple. It doesn't
You're
have to
doing
be
that every 6 weeks?
Yeah.
So you're looking at maybe 5 hours over 6 weeks. So less than an hour a week. Okay. Well, that's pretty awesome.
But even if you spend an afternoon, one after an admin, or let's be real, most of the PT owners are creating their own marketing things as well, right?
Yeah, right.
You're doing that already. So if you already have content created, or you already have time set aside to do this content creation, and
you can cycle content. You can recycle it.
Yeah.
You don't, because you're probably gonna have new followers every 6 to 8 weeks. And so
they're not seeing it every day.
No, you can always recycle the content too.
But I love how you gave some content for the content, like the ideas for values, I knew that when we had our PT practice, what we did really well was when we featured our employees and they showed like, Kim just had an anniversary or, you know.
We do the anniversary post too.
Yeah. So like feature and so people see that and they want to join and they're interested in learning more. And most people would probably like do research if they're going to understand a company, a PT company, they're even looking at you. First of all, I think the idea is that you're committing and you're contributing to people's other posts, celebrating them. Then they're like, who is this guy or girl? They go to your homepage and they see that, oh, he's got a company or she has a company. Then they go to your company page and then they see all your posts. They're going to go back in time and go, wow, look at all these people that are having, like it builds this buy-in before they even meet you. And that's what we want to do in the PT space, anyone, but specifically in these medical places where it's hard to recruit, is that they can create these systems and profiles and pages that will automatically sell people for them.
Yeah.
So when they show up, they're already like, yeah, I've been looking at your company. They're like they're honored and excited to meet you versus you being in a position of trying to convince them to join your company, which is what you have to do when they don't know anything else about you except that you just showed up and they're looking for work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, what would you say are other platforms that guys would recommend or stay away from for posting ads or recruiting?
Well,
look at you both like grown. You're like,
there's just honestly, there's just really not a lot of good platforms out there for PTs. There's just not. And so
I agree.
If it's an option, I suggest, building true in-person relationships. There's some value to that as well. If you can get to a PT school, network with those students, find a way to give back. When in our previous employer, we went and did mock interviews with students, and they're in their second year of school. And so it's kind of, you're just planting seeds at that point. So it's them just kind of getting to recognize you, be introduced to your company, and you're providing a service. You're serving them. But you're walking away with resumes in your hand.
Yeah.
And you keep those in your back pocket for a year. And then when they're in their last year of PT school, it's just a gentle outreach to them like, hey, I know you're, approaching graduation or whatever the case may be, and just want to wish you the best of luck. If outpatient's the right, setting for you, I'd love to have a conversation with you, however you want to, build that relationship with them. But there's a lot of value in that. If you can network with local PT schools and kind of get in that way. As far as online platforms, there's not a lot.
There's really not. Yeah. LinkedIn is the way to go for that. Indeed used to be another really good place pre-pandemic, but that went downhill pretty quick. And just doesn't really, nothing comes to fruition that's quality or really even any hardly at all. But so much value in going in person to any of the colleges and universities. I feel like we always came out of there with, I don't know about you, but whenever I would be in my mock interviews with the students, they would literally be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like forming these connections with them when you're really just serving them. And it's a lot of fun, like these little 10, 15 minute, interviews, and you're giving them a little feedback. They're like, this is super helpful. Oh my gosh, I'd love to talk to you.
And they do remember you a year and a half later.
They remember you. And we would even just do like little touches, even if it was like once every few months. We have all of the resumes. We take all of their email addresses, stick them all on an Excel sheet. So you have them all, in one area, make it really easy, and do follow-ups every now and then.
And if you had LinkedIn as the common way that you follow up, then it gives you that one-to-many capability to where, what do I even do on LinkedIn? It's like, well, you just follow up the people that you met in person.
Yes.
And you're just like, hey, how's it going in your second year? Be a human being and just think about what they're going through.
Yes.
How'd that rotation go? Are you freaking out about the boards? Can I help you? Is there anything else that you need from me? I'm here to help you find your best fit, whether it's with us or somebody else. What can we do? That person is the one who recruits and kills it.
Yep.
You guys both inhaled and looked at each other.
I was going to say something, then I was like, are you going to say something?
Well, and I think too, like if you put in that effort and you build that relationship with that candidate, say it's a PT student that you see from year 2 through graduation, taking the boards and getting their first job, even if they're not the right fit for you, they're going to talk to a friend and say, I'm not going outpatient, but I have 3 friends from school who are looking for outpatient jobs in your area. Here's their contact information. Maybe they'd be a good fit for you.
Yeah.
So,
man, I feel like that's where the gold mine is.
Yeah.
Getting in front of these universities.
I agree.
Guys.
Catch them when they're young. One of the things that I told Tony about was everything changed for me when I realized the power of recruiting first-year students. when I'd show up to their first year, there's a lag, but like no one's talking to these guys. They're completely out there on their own. They're completely like worried about just being qualified to be a PT one day, much less take the board. So when someone's an employer saying, I want you to come work for me, they're bought in immediately. And then you have that relationship to lose because they go back to their friends and family and go, I've already been told that. So before everyone else shows up when it's commonplace to be desired, they'll remember the person who cared for them when no one else did.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn can be the way that you stay connected to them in the intermediate. So building on relationships on LinkedIn is harder, very capable of doing it. But it's so much easier to leverage those in-person events coupled with LinkedIn to create an experience of them, of this ongoing relationship of mentorship, so that when you're like, by the way, and this is the question we always train on, we say, do you know anyone who's looking for a great job? Because we just had an opening pop up. Instead of asking if they want to work, because it creates that FOMO for them.
So let's be realistic here, though.
Let's do it.
Okay. The three of us love and thrive, like going into a university and introducing ourselves.
It's our jam.
It's our jam. And we have so much fun with it, right? Not every PT owner out there is going to be excited about going the first time and, getting in front of a university that they don't have a connection with yet. How do they do that, Will? How do they do that?
I'm glad you said this, because what I was going to say is I hated recruiting for years. And here's why. When people look at business owners, they think of them as like people who never get fired. We get fired more than anyone else every time someone quits. I'm firing you as my employer. We get, and it's so invalidating. And so I remember getting a email on a Friday night, going to this like party at my local church. And like, that's kind of an oxymoron. Party at my local church. There was that PG movie and whatever. But like I get down there and I'm like super excited because it's been a rough week, and I open up and it's an email saying, hey man, I'm quitting effective immediately. I was with him all day. He never pulled me aside. And like the invalidation. So I hated recruiting. But what I found was when I was going into these universities, and I didn't like it at first. I didn't like it. The reason I got addicted to it was because someone taught me, a coach, that it was my main job and that I happened to love it. I just didn't understand how to do it. So that's why learning how to do these things through podcasts like this or whatever else is super vital, because once I started having some success and it no longer became about recruiting for me, I started to love it. So I think most PT owners can learn to love it. Now, here's how I think PT owners aren't going to like it. If they're introverts in a normal way to where they normally don't want to be around anyone ever, no matter what, then maybe they should work with somebody who is a little bit more on the, but most PT owners, they have like a caseload and patients that love them. If they can do that, they can recruit all day long. That's really the litmus test. I tell PT owners, if they can have a bunch of patients bring them food because they're so grateful for what they did, they can go sell PTs. They're just not administering care. They don't understand that like they're giving the care of their profession if they just give them the right mentorship, right? But what would you say, Kayla?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy if you've never done it before, to try something new. But start small. Like you don't need to go and do this full blown presentation at a university if that's not what you're comfortable doing. Make it a small setting. Do mock, volunteer yourself to do mock interviews. I'm sure most universities are going to eat that up and take you on it. But yeah, just start small, and do these little groups where you're providing a service to them. And it's going to stick with them. So
I'm going to ask you this. There's going to be a lot of our listeners that are probably like, how do I even get in touch with them?
Yeah.
That don't even have a connection. So what would you say would be like the first step of even trying? They have no connection at any sort of university or anything like that. For me, I would just say, you could start, because I remember trying to establish this at our last company and trying to get, a new connection on a new school out in Louisiana. So, what I did was I went to the school's website and I tried to find someone that was on staff or they had someone's name listed within that physical therapy department, right? If they didn't have who was a professor, I would just go to someone and be like, hey, who do I need to talk to? I would love to introduce myself. I work for blah, blah, blah. And we would love to be able to help the students the up and coming students and serve you guys in whatever way we can. Just try to open the door that way. Or if you can't find anything, because sometimes on the websites, they may not have anybody's names. Yeah. They may just have like a generic email address. It's like an info at, literally go there and walk in and talk to the front desk in the area that might even be a big step, but walking in and just introducing yourself and saying you're a local PT owner in the area and you would love to be able to connect with someone that's on the staff, like in the PT department.
I think going there in person is a great idea.
I'm all about it. But
I think the in-person contact is massive if you can drive to university. Yeah.
Well, and I think the messaging is key. I think that you have to go in like not expecting to get anything out of it.
Exactly.
Like, I think that's where they're going to close the door on you, is if you're like, I'd love to get connected. I want to hire your students someday.
No, don't do it. Don't say that.
So it's in the messaging too, like that you are not trying to get anything out of this. You're just trying to give back to the next generation of PTs and, however you want to word it. But I think it has to be very clear that you're not asking for something, that you're just giving.
This is going back to that service, like just being able to serve others, because who doesn't feel good when you help someone else, right?
And I think that's when I stopped hating my recruiting journey, because I felt like I was always trying to get blood from a turnip, whatever phrase that is. But I think I'm whatever that phrase is. But like, for me, it's like this thing of like, oh, I can show up and be helpful. Mm-hmm. Like I can show up to university and be like, hey, what do you guys need? I'm a PT business owner. I don't have all the answers, but I know I can serve. Yeah. Could you sponsor? I remember sponsoring a golf tournament. I remember when they start asking you to speak at things, that's when you know you've made it. And that's when it's done. Because then you can show up and just serve the kids. And you're just like, hey, I really can help you guys with the mock interview if you want. If I don't even care if you're interested in working with me or not. I just want, and then the faculty see that, then they love you. And then they eventually you can get to the student SIG level. Like in Arizona, all the universities go to the student SIG thing, where all the students come together and they have these massive events. If you speak at those, it's another gold mine. By the way, another hack for people who are listening, a little shortcut, is to Google your state's student SIG organization. Like in Arizona, you can do that.
Yep.
Find the president. I modeled that for my Rockstar recruiter class last year. I looked her up, took her out to lunch, and she asked me to speak at the conclave. And it took me an hour. It took me an hour and 15 minutes. 15 minutes for the email, an hour at lunch. And then I was asked, I didn't speak because I don't need she didn't really, anyway. So the point being is that anyone else who wants to do this, they just don't know how. If they can change their mindset and go to a mindset of service, and then look at LinkedIn as like their job, and then connect the dots in terms of how that's used to manage and maintain relationships.
Yes.
They're gonna blow it out. They're gonna knock it out of the park because no one else is doing any of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of add around the student thing, like being a clinical instructor, like,
dude.
Like, why would you not do that?
Or
you're essentially interviewing this person really for 12 weeks. You get to see kind of what they have to offer. And again, not every student's going to be the right fit for your team, but at least you've got people coming through the door and helping you out for a little while. And
and it's funny, when we used to do that at Rise, I figured out early on, and I teach now, how like that was such a wasted opportunity if I just let them come. I did the whole series of things where every 2 weeks I'd take them out to lunch.
Yes.
And I'd be like, so my job's to help you build your career because I'm just that kind of guy. And, that kind of thing. And then by the end of it, I was just like, we might have an opening when you graduate. Please, sir. Like there's a way to do those student rotations as well, where they're more than just clinical service. You really deeply serve their greater purpose. And then they just dream about driving, in our case, to middle of nowhere, Florence, Arizona, past all these other jobs to get paid less because they have someone who believes in them. Because at the end of the day, the only reason we're paying more is because we don't know how to give them other value. Mm-hmm. So what if we could create the value of fulfilling their purpose? And what's great about PTs is most of us, we're really more passion driven than money driven. But we don't. But when the playing field is equal, what else do we have to go off of? More money. Yep. And that's why people who don't know how to message or know how to serve,
right?
I think that's why they struggle so much. Well, guys, I think this has been a fantastic masterclass on how to leverage LinkedIn to help develop meaningful relationships and get people brought on. Final thoughts.
Know who you are, know your worth, know what you have to offer these candidates, and don't be afraid to sell yourself. I think that having an understanding of kind of what their needs are and how you can fulfill those needs, just believe in yourself and kind of the culture that you've created and how you're going to build them up to, thrive in your company, but also beyond.
Love that. Tony.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of bounce off of yours, be who you are. Don't also just like take the first person, right? Putting yourself out there. Yeah, don't be desperate. You want it because honestly, bringing someone in just because you need someone really, really bad could be just as harmful, if not more harmful, than waiting for the right person, right? Because we've seen that
the whole team and 100% dissolve a team.
So like Kayla said, just know what you want, know what's going to make your team better and what's going to enhance your team, and go for that. And don't settle. Because it will come. Like, put your presence out there, put yourself out on LinkedIn and show exactly who you are and what you're looking for with your team, and it will come.
I love that. So if they wanted to get a hold of you guys for recruiting questions or virtual assistants, how can they get a hold of you guys?
Email Kayla@unlockhba.com.
And mine would be email as well, Tony, Tone, @unlockhba.com.
Yeah. And as a special thank you to everyone who's made it to this part of the podcast, free of charge, and I have zero intention of selling anything, I have this LinkedIn Igniter course, that program that I'll send you the link to. It's a video training with all the downloads of what to look for on LinkedIn and how you can leverage that tool to help develop meaningful relationships to hire. And that's my special thank you, Rockstars, for staying with us this long. Kayla, Tony, thanks for being on the show. Rockstars, until next time. Thank you for listening, Rockstars. And if you're one of the many medical professionals and leaders who have had it dealing with the drama of hiring and training people that you think are overpriced, then let's think about how virtual assistants can offload you to do what you love, which is changing people's lives. In the show notes, there's a link to jump on our calendar so that we can show you why LinkedIn shows that virtual assistants is the second fastest growing trend in healthcare, next to artificial intelligence. At no obligation, we'll see if this is a fit for you. I hope to talk to you soon.